Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Chatting with the Lightkeeper. I'm Edward, and I will be here to chat with you today about taking the next step in your DS journey. Many of you listening have not yet experienced interacting in person with other folks in the DS lifestyle. Many people, and there's nothing wrong with this, come to DS through the internet, explore, learn, grow, make friends, even find relationships online, but still have yet to actually venture out and interact with other people who are involved in DS in the real world. So I want to kind of talk through a little bit about taking that next step and going out and meeting people and kind of the three main ways to do that. Um, unless you're talking about actually meeting somebody who might be a love connection, so to speak, and meeting for coffee or dinner or something like that. But actually getting out and getting to know people in the community in the real world. So there's three really great ways to meet people in person and that are a part of the DS community. And those three main ways are munches. Now, the term munch may be foreign sounding to some of you, and all that means is that it's a gathering of kinky people in a vanilla setting. Um, Oftentimes, they're held in restaurants, maybe a coffee shop, maybe a bar, pub, restaurant type combination. It's just a really, it's just a bunch of people getting together and they all happen to be kinky. There's no S-list chaps, there's no I love BDSM t-shirts. It's something where if you happen to see a coworker or a neighbor while you were in that restaurant, you're just out with a group of people. There would be no telltale signs of what's kind of going on or who all these people are. So, and oftentimes the munches themselves will be, uh, kind of discreet or discreetly labeled. For example, the munch that I used to be a host for and run, um, we had signs out, not necessarily signs, but the coffee shop, the wait staff knew us as the as an internet users group. They didn't know necessarily what internet sites we used or what we talked about, but that's what people were told to ask for our group. There was no, kinky password or anything like that. It was all very, very, very vanilla for a vanilla world. Another way that you can meet people in the lifestyle and potentially get some more hands-on experience, and those are what are called play parties. And well, play parties are not um, getting together and playing Dungeons and Dragons. It is getting together and in a space that the people have set up where you can actually engage in DS play. A lot of the play that happens at these parties is casual, meaning the people who are engaging in play with each other are not in relationships. They just enjoy play. And that's what a play party is designed to do, is to provide an outlet for those people. The other nice thing about play parties for those who enjoy them is a lot of times the folks that host or have the play parties have a lot of equipment that perhaps you wouldn't have at home, whether it be maybe a spanking bench or a St. Andrew's cross, things like that that just might be hard to justify keeping in the closet at home, and they're available for people to use at these gatherings. And also, it's not just a whole lot of kinky play. A lot of people, and I do mean a lot, and more than the majority, go to these parties for the social aspect, just to hang out and be social with other kinky people. It's not necessarily you go and there's pressure to play or interact. So there are play parties as a way to get to know people. And the third way, and these are really cool. and they happen all around the country. But there are conventions, sort of like a giant Comic-Con, only it's lifestyle related. Typically they're weekends. There are some that do run for a full week, but typically it's a weekend where you arrive Friday night and there's a reception, kind of a meet and greet, and then Saturday during the day are all sorts of classes on various subjects. And, just like Comic-Con, you can pick which sessions you want to go to and what classes appeal to you and not attend the ones that don't. Typically on a Saturday night after dinner and after all the classes are over, they have a large social gathering, which sometimes are just social. Sometimes they do incorporate play space where people can engage in lifestyle play. And then Sunday are some more classes, then everyone goes home in the afternoon. So, there's the munches, there's the play party, and then there's the convention style type gatherings to meet people. So there's a lot of different ways to get out and just start making real world connections within the community. Not saying there is anything wrong with people who want to just explore online, but there is a difference between building in-person connections versus online connections, and especially when you think that you're ready to enter and start dating in the DS world. It can be challenging online to find people who are local to you. You can find some amazing people that are, across an ocean, and that can really make building a relationship a challenge with there's that much distance, or even time zone changes. It's you're getting off work and they're going to bed. It can really make things hard with distance. The internet is great, and all of our tools from smartphones and video chats really do make a huge difference in doing that. And there's nothing wrong with doing that if that's what works for you. But there is something special about actually making in-person connections. And what I think it really does help with is a sense of it helps kind of when you're online. Sometimes you can feel a little bit alone, in the sense that you may not know anybody in your local area. And this way you can start to build some connections, contacts, maybe even friendships, or find a relationship. But you're putting the building blocks in place of getting to know, um, you know, actual people that you can go out to dinner with, share coffee, and not necessarily, kink related activities, but you can just start to build relationships with people that also share some of our unique interests that, you wouldn't be able to tell when you're waiting in line to check out with your groceries if the person you just sort of randomly chit chatted with was kinky or not. So at this point, let's take a quick break for a word from the podcast sponsor, and we'll be back to talk about the three main ways to meet people in the real world after the break. Welcome back. And so we're talking about taking the next step in that kinktastic journey. If you've explored online, you've learned online, and you're ready to start meeting some people in person. So probably the most popular, and it would be the method that I would personally recommend. But like with all things lifestyle related, there's not a right or a wrong way to do things. It's what works for you, as long as you're being safe and consensual about it. Rock on, do what works for you. So the method that I prefer to meet people through in person, and that's using going to a munch. Once again, a munch is just a gathering of kinky people in a vanilla space. Um, Munches can happen in big towns, big cities. There's normally several different ones. The larger the area, the more munches there are. Small towns, even small towns that you'd be surprised, do have munches. Finding a munch. How do you find one? Um, there's a website that I use, and if you're around the kink world, I'm sure you've heard of it. It's called FetLife, FetLife, FetLife.com. They have I only access FET on my laptop. So if you do use the mobile version of it, this probably won't point you quite directly in the right way, but along the top, if you access on a laptop, there's a tab called Events once you've signed in. And when you click on that, you can select a location, either where you currently are, or maybe you're going to be taking a vacation and want to check out a munch while you're on vacation. And so that way you don't have to potentially worry about running into somebody you know, which might help alleviate some fears. But you can search by events by a radius of miles or kilometers, depending on which method you use, whether you're imperial or metric. Um, and then you'll see a list of events by day and normally a brief description of what they are, whether it's a play party, whether it's a munch, whether it's educational class, all sorts of different things that are out there. And you can kind of scroll through and perhaps find some things that are of interest to you potentially. And so that's why I like FetLife, because it allows me to see what is happening in my local community and in one easy to find place. People who are newer to the lifestyle is something I hear fairly common is Fet can feel very overwhelming. There's so much there. If you can imagine Facebook off the kinky rails. That is what FetLife is like. You have everything there from people looking to hook up, people sharing whatever it is they want to share, um, with a healthy smorgasbord of naughty pictures, naughty videos. It's all there. Um, but for me, the FetLife I use, just strictly for the events. I do share some of my writings or my daily thoughts, which if you follow my blog or on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, you'll see those. But I also put them on FetLife as well. Um, but it's a great tool for finding events. And if you feel it's overwhelming, my advice is to start small. When you create an account, of course, it's going to want to walk you through and set up a profile where they're going to want to know all these wonderful things about you, your age, what your role is, what you're looking for, whether you're single or partnered, how do you identify, what's your sexual orientation, and then, of course, the About Me section where you can write a novel about yourself if you're so inclined, and then another section where you can add all your fetishes, all the wonderful kinky goodness that you're into. So just the signing up there for somebody who's new can feel overwhelming even before you get into the meat and potatoes of the site. So my advice is be a minimalist. You don't need to share everything. You don't need to share necessarily your exact location. You can share, maybe the next town over or the closest big city, where perhaps that's the big city you would be interested in exploring munches in. And you don't have to list an age, or if it may force you to list an age now, but I've seen people say that there are 102 on there or 99. You don't need to list a gender. You don't have to choose that you're submissive. You certainly don't have to upload any pictures. You can be very much a minimalist and just use it to get the account set up and then click the events tab and find out what is happening in your particular neck of the woods. So there is kind of a difference between big and small town kink communities. Um, I can only speak for myself. I've experienced the small town kink life, and I've experienced big city kink life. So we'll start with small towns. Um, I love small town munches. I really do. Because, first of all, the numbers, you're not going into a group where potentially could be 20, 40, 50 people or more it's a more intimate, small crowd. And because it's a smaller community, people are going to be more diverse in those attending. You're going to have different backgrounds, different interests, and it's typically a little bit more accepting. It's like, oh, thank you, another, you're welcome here. You're another, you're another kinky person. Come join the group. And it's easier to establish and connections because you're not dealing with a large group, and it's not as specific. In bigger cities, you're going to find munches that are geared for people who are new. You're going to have munches geared to age groups. You're going to have munches grouped. There will be munches which are specific to submissives. You're going to have munches that are going to be specific to dominance. There are going to be some munches which are for primarily geared for people who are poly. There's going to be some munches that are, geared for people that are more on the sexual side, maybe blending being a swinger with a little kinky play. Um, it's going to be a very, there's going to be a lot more specific style of munches, so it can be almost more of a challenge in a larger community to find your find your niche, find your place, find your people. So it takes trial and error, no matter where you are. I mean, in the smaller community that I started my journey in, there were there were still, for a small community, there were still four different munch groups. Within an hour drive, and if I extended it an hour and a half, then there were up to, depending on kind of the season, summer being in a northern climate, with snow, some of the munches weren't as active in the winter, and others were more active in the winter, and then sort of um, didn't get together as much in the summer when people would be typically busy or busier. So it can kind of just run the gamut of what you're looking for. One thing to be aware of, is the lifestyle, of course, if you haven't noticed, is becoming more blended as far as the sexual component coming into it, being accepted, and people just kind of coming for the kinky sex. And where you're seeing that convergence more so is between people who are in open sexual relationships, whether it's whether they would determine open, or uh, perhaps they call themselves swingers, but there's more blending there. So that's something to look for if you are looking for more of a pure DS or BDSM group, um, is to find out, what the munch kind of caters to. Is it people who are looking to make friendships and connections and talk about their experiences, that with the more play side oriented versus a DS, a more traditional DS type person. Um, and how would you find this out? I mean, yeah, there's probably a little blurb or a paragraph that talks about the munch. So part of the homework, in essence, that you need to do if you're in a community where there's multiple choices of munches, um, every group is going to have host, multiple hosts or just one person hosting the event. Reach out, shoot them an email, ask about their event. What do they, what is their target, demographic, who typically attends. Is there an age group? Is there a subset? Is it geared mostly for submissives? Is it geared for submissives? And, if you show up and you're a dominant, they're going to be like, yeah, this is not the group for you. So emailing the host is fantastic because you're going to learn more about the group, how they who they cater to, if they cater to somebody specific. Some munch groups will have like discussion topics, much like if you follow my blog during the week. There's every day a little question, or same with the Instagram. There's a little question that gets asked about the lifestyle, and a lot of munches do have that, and kind of go around the room, and everyone shares their thoughts. Um, and it's a no right or wrong answer. It's just people sharing their thoughts, their opinions, and we all learn when we see how other people look at things, or see things differently than ourselves. Where other munches are purely social. If you talk about kink, it just kind of comes up in your conversation with somebody. It isn't there's no set discussion topics. It's just kind of get together with other kinky people and have conversations and get to know people. So the other thing a good host of a munch will do is if you are new and you're coming to their munch and they know you're coming, is once you'll want to introduce yourself. Typically, a good munch host will have either they will kind of show you around and introduce you to some of the people that they know well, or they will have kind of specific greeters if it's a larger munch. People that have been coming for a while know a lot of the regular attendees, know them well, so you can get introduced to people that are vetted by that group, are known to that group, so you have some level of confidence that you're meeting, good people, that you're not meeting some Slim Shady character, which is always kind of a nice thing to do. Um, but do understand if it's your first munch, you're going to be nervous when you go. You're going to feel like perhaps the best way I could equate it to would be the new kid at school. I don't know if any of you have gone through the being the new kid at school or the new kid in a class where there's already an existing, existing circles of friends. It's going to kind of feel like that. So you're going to have to know that you're going to feel a little bit like the new kid, the new person, and you're going to have to work just a little bit to make some connections. And the second time you go, it'll be easier. You'll know some people. You'll have met some people. There will be more comfort level there, and it just builds on itself. But it does typically take a few experiences to get comfortable because it's a new experience. And the other thing I want to talk about, and this is kind of the perfect time, a lot of people who are newer to the lifestyle, their fear, whether they live in a huge metropolitan area, like let's say New York City and all its boroughs and suburbs and all of that, to living in a small town like I currently do. A lot of people have the fear of, oh my goodness, what if I see somebody I know there? And it's a legitimate fear. I mean, it's something that especially if you're newer to DS, you aren't probably out there with it. And I'm not out there with it. I mean, I know I have a blog, I podcast and things all like that, but I'm not out with it. So it's a very rational fear. It's definitely a valid feeling. The thing I'll tell you is they're there for the same reason you are. They have a similar interest and they're exploring their interest just like you are. So if you do by chance run into somebody that you know, or somebody that you know that somebody else knows that they know, and you have a mutual connection, which is more probable than actually running into somebody you know. But just understand that you're there for the same reason. And kink events have always been like Las Vegas, whether it's a munch, a play party, or a convention. What happens there stays there. It's not something where they're going to go whisper to your friend, "Hey, guess who I saw last night at a munch?" Because their friend's going to be like, "What's a munch?" And so it's one of those things where you don't need to worry about seeing somebody you know or somebody you might know through friends of a friend type thing. Everyone is there for the same reason. So if you do bump into somebody you know, we're everybody's there for the same reason as you are. So there's no need to feel ashamed or concerned that you're going to be outed for your participation in meeting others for, in the case of the munch that I used to host, the internet users group. Oh yeah, I was just a bunch of people, we get together and chat about stuff online, and we get together in person for coffee once a month. Okay, it's simple, easy to explain away, and it's nothing to be worried about. So that is a look at munches. Next thing to talk about will be kind of an offshoot of the munches. Some groups, especially in bigger cities, will offer classes. Now, the classes that I know probably if you're newer, maybe hearing the word, communities offer classes sounds really exciting because classes sound like things that are geared for newer people, and sometimes those classes are geared specifically for people who are newer. Other times they can be geared for specific things that may not be for example, your yum. They could be a yuck for you. So it's important to understand that classes are they cover the gamut. So you may see in my local community every week there's a group that gets together for classes on rope and suspension, which is fantastic for those who are into it. It's not my jam, but if it is your jam, it's fantastic. And every Wednesday night you can get together and learn new knots and practice and have fun and be social with other people who are into that same jam. So classes can be great as long as it's something that you're interested in. And also understand that these classes are not taught by professionals. They're taught by great people in the community, but don't go in expecting to have, an instructor that wows you with a lecture on daddy doms. They could be a great daddy dom and, you know, maybe not the greatest presenter. Kind of just like a professor in college. They can be incredibly knowledgeable, but not always a great presenter. But no matter whether it's a good presenter or a bad presenter, there's often with the classes a social aspect, either like a dinner beforehand or social hour afterwards. So it's a great way to get information, learn new skills, new ways to do an old trick, and also get to know other people in the community. So there are the classes that are, geared educationally more than just being social like a munch. And then that's going to bring us to our next little bit of adventure, and these are called play parties. Now, this is something that, if you're newer, would probably be take up somebody who's a bit more daring. If a munch sounds kind of intimidating, or even a class sounds a little intimidating, the play party might be super intimidating, but other people are adventurous and want to jump in and they want to experience and see what it's about, maybe even feel what it's about or feel how it feels. And play parties are great because they do offer a social aspect. In fact, most people who go to play parties are there for the social side of things rather than the hands-on, so to speak, side of the play party. So there's a social area where people gather and just chat, and you're amongst kinksters, fetishers, people in the DS lifestyle. And since it's a play party is in a safe environment for the lifestyle, unlike a munch or a class where it's vanilla dress, you will have people dressed in fetish wear to their underwear to nothing. It's um, it's a very open environment, and people are encouraged to be themselves. However that is, they're encouraged to do it. The thing about play parties, which is wonderful if you are wanting to experience what what sensations feel like. A lot of people who are newer to the lifestyle, whether it's on the dom side or the sub side, can kind of get into a frenzy where they want to explore, they want to experience, and that can lead to unsafe decisions. Meeting a stranger for a night of play or a relative stranger for a night of play in an unsafe manner. Play parties are great because they offer a safer environment. Um, they have in the play areas, if you decide to play, they will have somebody called a dungeon master or dungeon monitor. And what their job is to do is to make sure that safe words are respected, that people who are engaging in play aren't crossing any of their thresholds where they said, I will do X and Y, but I won't do Z, and to make sure that that Z isn't even approached, or if somebody says their safe word or needs assistance, there's somebody right there to jump in and keep everything safe. Now, if you do go to a play party and you do feel that you want to indulge and you find somebody that you want to interact with, it's important to understand that play parties, everything needs to be negotiated. And I mean everything from safe words to what can and what cannot happen in a scene. And this is a big thing to stress, especially if you are coming from the online world. Most people, especially online, will talk about the importance of aftercare, stress the importance of it, how, we really learn a lot about ourselves and our partner through aftercare. Aftercare for me is my favorite part of play. However, in a play party environment where it's casual, don't have expectations about aftercare unless you've negotiated it. Because there are people there who do not engage in aftercare unless it's negotiated. They're done with the scene, they're done playing, and they move on because aftercare was not negotiated. So if that is something that you're looking to explore when you're doing the negotiation, and when I say scene, what a scene is just basically it's kind of like a movie scene or a scene in a play. It's what was negotiated beforehand between the dominant and the submissive, and the scene is, X, Y, and Z will happen. These are the safe words. Here's what you can do. Here's what you can't do. And they then, within those very that well defined box, engage in play that that is beneficial and enjoyable for everyone. But since everything is negotiated, aftercare must be negotiated as part of this. A couple other things to understand about play parties is some play parties are sex positive and some are not. Um, Sex positive typically means, and this is once again a question that you'll need to ask of the people that are running the event, typically means that not only can you engage in DS play there, but that DS play can also include sex. A play party that is not sex positive, those will be typically DS scenes, DS play, but there will be no sexual component. There'll be no penetration. There'll be no oral sex. Uh, so it's very important to understand what the boundaries of the event are, what they, what they allow, what they don't allow, and even a sex positive party will have certain rules and limitations on sometimes on what can and what cannot happen sexually as well as DS wise. There are some play parties where, for example, needle play is not allowed, other ones where it is allowed. Another thing to understand when you're going to a play party is sometimes people like to have a drink to relax first, or perhaps, you know, have a joint. In the state I live in, marijuana is legal. So you need to understand what that group's policy is towards alcohol and drugs, legal or otherwise. Some are very permissive and others are not. So it's very important to understand, you know, what is allowed, what isn't allowed. So that's a play party. And remember, while the play parties are a wonderful, safer environment to engage and to explore what things feel like, or if you're a dominant that is newer, oftentimes it's great because you will find experienced dominants, especially if they, for example, are at a party with their submissive, who will, for example, say you've never used a flogger. No, I'm not saying they're going to say, yeah, okay, go ahead and, whack my submissive on their derriere with the flogger here, but they're going to, perhaps there'll be people there willing to show and teach you, strike here, don't strike there. It can be you can find people who are willing to mentor and teach things there, which is also fantastic. So don't also go to a play party expecting to play. Most people go there for the social aspect or will specifically only play with certain trusted friends, or you will have other people who are in committed yes relationships who are exhibitionists who like to go to a play party because they like to show off. And hey, it's a great fun place in a safe environment where they know they can have an audience and do so safely. Another thing to understand about play parties is if you're watching people scene or play, oftentimes they'll call it scening. Um, the actual area where you would watch it happen is very much like golf, or tennis. You don't clap, you don't talk, it's very quiet, and the only people really making any noise at all will be the people who are engaging in play. If you want to be social or you want to talk, then you need to excuse yourself from the area where the play is happening and go back to the area set aside for being social. So understand that the areas are surrounding where play is happening, everything is going to be quiet except for those who are on stage. So that's a play party. Um, the other real kind of the big kahunas are the conventions, and they happen all around the country. Oftentimes, mostly in big cities, or if it does happen in kind of a rural area, it's at a retreat or a resort type setting, a place that actually hosts regular conventions because you'll have multiple meeting places, meeting rooms set up for classes. Um, everyone, they typically are weekends, but there are some week-long events. And so a typical convention will be everybody arrives at some point during the day on Friday. Friday evening is social, kind of a cocktail hour. And once again, depending on the event, some events may not serve alcohol. It may just be, Shirley Temples and soda cocktail hour. Others may be a full-on, have some drinks and be social, and maybe some music for dancing, and just kind of a social hour for people to meet the other attendees, meet the people that are going to be teaching the classes, and just be social. And then Saturday, will be classes with a break for lunch, more classes after lunch, a break for dinner, and then Saturday evening is typically another social shindig. And often the Saturday night shindig is combination social and also a play party. And because they're a convention with lots of people, lots of space, there are a lot of play spaces. It's a big it's a big undertaking. They can be expensive, um, but with all the educational aspects and learning that goes on, they're fantastic for it. Not to mention you're meeting people from across the region or across the country in person. And they can also be great for a group of online friends to get together and go to, because sometimes it can be hard to get together with people who are spread out across the United States, and a kink convention can be fantastic for that because it allows you to meet those friends that you've talked to online, and also be in an environment where you've probably the reason why you met and talk and have become friends is because of the lifestyle. So they be a great way for people who are scattered all around to come together as kind of a group of friends and get to know each other in person. And so after your Saturday night shindig, then Sunday typically there's a few classes in the morning, and then kind of a mass extravaganza where maybe there's some awards or presentations, and then everyone goes home. But it's one of the neat things about the community is there's so many great ways to learn, to grow, to connect in person. It doesn't have to be all done online, and there's nothing wrong with doing things online. We meet some amazing people online, and just being able to incorporate some of the in-person side of it is a great next step, especially if you've explored DS, you've explored it online, you've learned, you realize this is something that you would like in a relationship with somebody potentially, or maybe you've just come to it because you've just enjoyed the kink the kink side of things. You really don't want to have a DS relationship, but you want to, find a partner who's kinky. Um, no matter what or how your interest in the lifestyle, there's an in-person event that is going to be a fit for you. And I do recommend doing it because you meet connections. And if you are looking for that relationship, the one beautiful thing is you're going to be meeting people from, um, maybe not if you go to a major convention, but if you're going to a munch or a class or a play party in your general area, you are more than likely going to meet people from your general area. And you will be surprised actually at the number of people in your small town, if you are in a small town, that actually are kinky or in that larger area around. So even if you are in a smaller community, there will be opportunities, and there are opportunities, and they're not that far away from you, believe it or not. Mostly, I mean, there are some places where, unfortunately, it's going to be that way, but you would be amazed. So I want to encourage you, if you are newer, to consider looking at and starting to kind of tiptoe in the waters of getting to know what's going on in your local in-person community, as well as continuing your explorations and your connections and building all of that online. So that's a little bit of a rundown on what is waiting when you are ready to take that, kind of dip your pinky toe into meeting people in DS in real life. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a question. I'm more than happy to answer them. I can be found at Chatting with the Lightkeeper on Twitter, on FetLife, um, over on Facebook, Instagram, and of course my blog, The Lightkeeper's Journal, over on Tumblr. So no matter what works for you, if you have a question, shoot me up and I will answer it as quickly as I can. Don't forget to click the follow button so you never miss one of my weekly episodes. And if you are on Spotify mobile, there's a poll question. If you want to scroll down and answer that, that would be fantastic. And also, another question if you want to leave some feedback for somebody. If you've attended an in-person event, what advice would you give somebody going to their first one? Love to hear some answers and share those with everyone here. So thank you for listening, and we'll chat again real soon. And in fact, it'll just be next week. So look forward to chatting with you then, and have a great day.